Roger, go for deploy.
We are rolling.
We're rolling. We're back.
Welcome back to Adventure Radio, round 2, Geraint.
Hi there, how's it going?
Yeah, good. It's going good.
You know, the great thing about it is for the first 15 minutes, we were struggling not to call you Geraint in the last episode.
Are we getting it correct this time, Geraint?
Geraint Lewis.
Yeah, I can't believe we've
now I'm
nailed
struggling
it.
with Lewis.
Yeah. Geraint
Geraint
Lewis.
We've
We've got that French thing. We just can't drop it.
Geraint Poisson.
Definitely not French.
Can you speak any French?
No.
No. Well, that's pretty good, mate.
So why don't you refresh us, and for people that haven't listened to the first show, Geraint, about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Geraint Lewis. I'm a Professor of Astrophysics here at the School of Physics at the University of Sydney. I am a lecturer. I teach physics, but I also do research into cosmology, trying to understand the evolution of the universe and also what the universe is made of. So I've got a big focus on what is dark matter, essentially. What's the fundamental framework of the universe? What's dark matter? What is dark energy? And I work in different areas to try and unravel those kind of things. So I work in gravitational lensing. I build synthetic universes on computers.
Easy.
And I also do work in an area called galactic cannibalism, which is where one galaxy eats another galaxy.
Yes.
So we can use all of these things to basically try and test different ideas of what dark matter is. So yeah, it's a very broad area.
I'm already aroused. like, I was aroused last one. I'm aroused again.
Yeah,
This
my
is great.
favourite type of cannibalism
It's
is
the best
galactic
shit ever.
cannibalism.
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing better than eating planets.
So let's just dive right into the big topic then. So talk to us about. I remember last time we spoke. I think we started off
I'm
with.
so excited.
Tell us about the Big Bang, layman's terms. Now we don't obviously need to go over that again. Let's dive into dark matter.
Dark
Because,
matter.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, tell us all about it. What do we know?
Well, we actually know quite a lot, right? I mean, this is the thing. Everywhere we look in the universe, there is evidence that there is more matter than we can see illuminated by stars, right? So when we look into the universe, we see light, we see radio waves, we see gamma rays, etc. And that comes from material, the same sort of stuff that we're made of, atoms, essentially. So we can actually measure how much matter is out there in terms of the stars and the gas and all that other stuff. But we can also measure the amount of matter in terms of how things are moving, right? So when you see a star orbiting in a galaxy, its orbit is held there by the mass of the galaxy.
Yes.
And when we calculate how much mass there is 30 to 100 times more mass there than we can just see illuminated by stars and gas, etc. So there's all this additional matter out there. Now, it's not only, I said, in the motions of stars, but every single sort of test we do, so looking at how light waves travel through the universe, we see that there must be more mass there because the paths of those light rays get distorted. And again, what we've come to realize is that in terms of matter, the atoms, the stuff that we're made of, that is the small fraction of stuff in the universe. Everywhere we look, the evidence is from our own galaxy to galaxies off in the distant universe to the overall framework of the distribution of galaxies and clusters and everything, is there must be this extra matter out there. So the question is what is this stuff, right? So one thing we know is that it's not made of atoms, right? Because atoms radiate, right? This is the key thing, right? Atoms, even we radiate, right? So as human beings, we're a few hundred degrees Kelvin, and so we radiate in the infrared. So matter radiates. And we've now looked at all bands of the electromagnetic spectrum, from X-rays down to radio waves, and this stuff doesn't radiate radiation. So
Isn't that interesting? That's fascinating. Yeah, really fascinating.
Yeah. So it's not normal material. And the leading idea is that it must be some other particle, right? So it's not charged, okay? Because charged particles interact with light. They have electromagnetic radiation. It must have mass, but it's got a few other properties as well. That we sort of know. It must be moving at relatively low speeds. It's not moving at the speed of light. The big problem we have is that, of course, we have cosmology, but on the other side we have particle physics, which it describes the universe of the very small, and there's no particle in there which can be the dark matter particle. So in terms of all the experiments we've done at the Large Hadron Collider, etc., nothing has been spat out which could represent this particle. And there's nothing in the framework at the moment, as we understand it, that could be the dark matter particle. So there is a big effort, both cosmologically, to try and put further constraints on the properties of dark matter, the way it clusters, the way it's distributed, and all this kind of stuff. But also, we know that on the particle physics side, there's work to be done there, because clearly the theory can't be complete, because we know there must be at least this additional particle, which is not in that theory. So everyone's trying to extend the standard model of particle physics such that they could find a natural candidate for the dark matter particle. And at the moment, we are in this horrible situation. I'll try to explain this, right? The situation is that we have two highly successful theories. We have cosmology, which works really, really well. But you've got to have this dark ingredient, dark matter, dark energy, for it to work. We have particle physics, which works really, really well, but we know that there has to be these extra components. And what we're looking for is places where the theories break down, because it's where they break down that tells you, look in this direction. Okay? And we don't really have that many avenues to go down, right? So in particle physics, if every time you run the Large Hadron Collider, the stuff that comes out is exactly what your current mathematics predict.
So like you're getting it right. This is one of the things that I often think, and I had this conversation with Tommy about the difference between being an atheist and being agnostic. And I call myself agnostic because although I don't believe in gods, I feel like whatever created this and how we got here, and the question I asked you, what happened before the Big Bang, all these questions, I feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff, and probably I'm not saying I'm not backing you guys in, but I feel like surely there must be some things that we just might not be able to get our heads around. Is that what, I mean, how are we moving forward with dark matter, or is it something that it's just so perplexing at the moment that you're like, what do we do here?
Sorry to cut you, Geraint, but the issue I have with that is that it's kind of like it's like a gap filler. It's like whatever we don't know now, there's always a place for God. But God's been slowly sort of moved out. I mean, God.
I'm not even talking about God. I'm just talking about science, really, creation of everything. You know.
So it's a very interesting question about what are the limits of human knowledge, right? Because your brain, right, spent millions of years evolving you to find coloured fruits and then watch out for dangers on the savannah.
Wait, what about Adam and Eve?
And I think it's actually startling that this brain has been able to work out as much of the universe as it has. It's incredible that we came across the language of mathematics, which we can use to describe the universe. So there's all these things which, firstly, I find rather amazing that we can even do that. But then you must ask yourself the question, well, then is it limited, right? There's only a certain number of connections in your brain. There's only a certain number of calculations that can be done. There's only a certain level of imagination, right? So will we ever be able to unravel what, the fundamental stuff of the universe? Will we ever be able to think about it or describe it, all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm a human, and so I have the same limitations. And thinking about this, you'd like to think that that knowledge is one of those things which is infinitely expandable, right? But it might be that we just cannot eventually solve these problems.
But even if you do, would you necessarily want to? Isn't so much in the fun in discovering and it would be. What's that cartoon where he's always Roadrunner? You know, where the thing's always chasing after the chicken or the roadrunner, whatever it's called.
It's a roadrunner.
Roadrunner. Yeah, I think I said it the first time. God, remember, I'm not a physicist. But if you eventually caught it, there'd be no TV show.
That's true. That's true. But understanding the fundamental laws of the universe does not mean that there will be an end to science, right? Because there are different levels of complexity, right? The saying is, right, a bee is much more complicated than a star. How are we ever going to be able to describe a bee in terms of fundamental physics? And the answer is, quite probably, but the every level that you build up, the complexity in the calculations that you would need to do to explain a bee are huge.
Yes.
Now, so even if we got the fundamental laws of the universe down and we could write them all down, etc., science is not over.
Yeah.
In fact, science has only really just begun because we then have to work out how all of that feeds through
Very true.
into everything
Very true.
else.
What about this for a theory? So touching on your point of like, will we ever actually be able to get to the bottom of everything? And when we do, there's probably still a million things that we can't fathom. So it's basically like, and I heard this analogy, Russell Brand used this analogy once.
That well-known scientist, yes.
Very true. Yeah.
So,
Dr. Russell Brand, Dr. Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, PhD. But,
PhD.
So he was talking about, does my cat know about the internet? So for example, say we have little cat biologists and astrophysicists and cat scientists, like the smartest cat on the planet, because cat's just an animal, right? We're just an animal, we're part of the food chain. So like, no matter how well we explained or tried to get a cat to understand that the internet exists and how it works, it'd be pretty hard for a cat's brain right now, on the level that it's at, for it to understand the internet. So can we extrapolate that out to us and say like, because I feel like that's the case. I feel like there's so much that's going on, and I think we'll always continue moving forward in science. I feel like that's definitely going to be the case. But if you extrapolate that out, surely there's processes that our human minds, at the current state, enter artificial intelligence. We can talk about that if you want or not. But like our human brains might just not be capable of understanding.
So there's a couple of points there. Firstly, will a cat understand the internet? I actually don't think a large fraction of people on the planet understand the internet.
Yes.
Myself,
I certainly don't.
I mean, the language, what goes on in the computer, how that information is passed back and forth, etc.
It fascinates me.
Right? Do you know how a microwave works?
I know how nothing works.
Well,
I don't know how to make a coffee.
But this is the thing.
But you could learn. Could a cat learn?
That's right.
You could learn, or could you learn? I mean, there's plenty of people that tell you they could never understand science, right? Or mathematics is so scary. So, if you say to somebody, right, I will now explain to you, how a microwave works. Yes, you go through the analogies, etc., and they can regurgitate the analogy to somebody else. But do they understand how a microwave works? Do they understand how packet switching works on the internet? Right? There's all these things that we say, as humans we understand, but it's not really. The knowledge is really within the minds of a relatively small number of people. Yes, you probably could explain everything to a growing number of people. But the question of the cat and the internet, it depends what you mean by understand. Right?
Well, I guess maybe not as a species, but as you said yourself, there are a select group of human beings. So human beings have the potential to understand the internet. Yeah. Do cats have the potential to understand the internet?
Yeah. And at some level, I would guess no.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that they can see animals on the screen and they think that they're there. But that's the way that
it's very immediate return. It's very primitive.
Yeah. But no. Again, look, I don't know with regards to humans. I could imagine that. Imagine one day aliens come along and they say we've got this new technology that does blah, and we could be like cats and never really understand.
That's right.
What's going on?
That's totally the thing.
Right.
That's totally the thing. It's kind of like I find it very funny when you talk about the Voyager blasting off into interstellar space, and we have all these ways to communicate and try to get our message out there. But I mean, we could be communicating on like a wavelength or a frame or the technology that we use that's just completely inconceivable to extraterrestrial beings and vice versa. Like, how do we know that they understand what the internet is and recognize sound even as a form of communication?
Well, and the other thing, of course, is that, look, our science, modern science, is based upon mathematics, right? And there's this big question of, is mathematics discovered or is it invented, right? So if these, yes, fair enough, one coffee cup and one coffee cup makes two coffee cups. But then when you
hold the phone there, pal.
but you know what I mean is that the higher level mathematics, and again, look, this is speculation more than anything, but what if the aliens turn up and their science is not described by mathematics or even some framework as we could even understand it? So if they wanted to explain to us how their technology worked, and we just do not have the mental capacity to understand how they even describe their basic science, then I could imagine that we are the equivalent of cats.
Yeah, it's very I always think of like the obviously, if we are living in like a multiverse, for example, have you ever seen the final scene on Men in Black 1, I believe it is? And it's where they're in New York City and then it zooms out, and they're in America. Zooms out, they're in North America. The Earth, Milky Way, so on and so
galaxy
forth.
to galaxy.
Yeah, and it zooms all the way out, all these stars, all these galaxies, the known universe, and then it zooms out, and it's a marble that an alien, alien child's playing on a beach on some other planet. So, so if that is the case, which I, for one, think. And I know nothing about this. But this is my theory. I feel like that's got to be the case. I don't feel like there's an end to anything. I think everything will just expand, and there would be many multiverses. This is what, like I said, as a layman, that's what I think probably is the case. And if that's the case, then there's got to be so many processes out there that we just
But then how is that the case? What I love about physics is that we are these like physical shells in the middle of something infinitely large and infinitely small. At the moment, we know that the smallest things are atoms, but there could be something more.
Yeah.
There could also be something quite big. We just find ourselves conscious, going, "What the fuck is going on right now?"
So at some level, we're limited by technology, right? So there's a famous thing about the electron, right? So electrons, if you talk to people in particle physics, are point-like, right? They have no size. But if you talk about the people that do the experiments, and they do an experiment on measuring the size of the electron, there's a resolution to their experiment. And they say, how big is an electron? And the answer always comes back smaller than your resolution. Right? We'll increase the resolution. How big is an electron? Smaller than your resolution. And that's the only way that experiments work, is that you always have a finite resolution. There's no experiment that we do that says it's truly point-like. So we don't know really what an electron is in terms of its size. It could be that eventually we'll find that there's structure to the electron. This is why people keep pushing these experiments downwards. Similarly, on the large scale, we're limited to the fact that even if there is a multiverse, right, we only see a very small patch of this universe. And then getting light from other patches in the multiverse, we would never be able to do. So there are limits to what. There are limits to the way we can probe the universe, which means that lots of these questions are always going to be difficult to answer. If the scale of structure in an electron is 100 billion, trillion times smaller than the scale of our experiments could ever do, then we will never know what's really going on in an electron, right? And similarly, unless we can come up with some sort of magic at some level that can bring us light from further distances in the multiverse.
Further back,
we're never going to know what's beyond the patch of universe we can see. And so at some level there's a line there between the science we can experimentally test and then the rest of the stuff which we have to sort of hypothesize and think about. Now, string theory is a similar one, right? String theory, the wobbling strings are tiny. We can't directly probe those strings at the moment. We can keep designing bigger and bigger experiments, but will we ever get down to the level to test whether or not something's a vibrating string? The answer is, at some level, no. What we have to do is try and extrapolate that vibrating string upwards into the experimental regime we can test, and at the moment we haven't been able to do that.
One of the questions I always wanted to ask was, so our current understanding of how old the universe is 13.5 billion years?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, a little bit older,
A little bit older. And that's based on the cosmic microwave, which is the light that we can see, the oldest light we can see. Is that correct?
It's based on a couple of things.
Right.
It's essentially to do with how fast the universe is expanding now, which is this thing called the Hubble constant, which is a number we can measure, plus the content of the universe. Right, so the content of the universe we know is 70% dark energy, 30% matter, of which most of that's dark matter. If you know what the universe is made of, right, you can then take the expansion backwards, right? So you can take the current expansion and wind it backwards and wind it back to that point where the size of the universe goes to zero. And that's how you calculate the age of the universe.
Really?
Yeah.
But so does dark matter not kind of screw that around a bit? Because that's expanding the universe, isn't it?
No, dark energy.
Oh, sorry, dark energy. Yeah, it's causing expansion at a greater rate than it should be.
That's but it's the same thing. Is that if I know how fast a car is going now, right? And I knew that I only accelerated at a certain rate or decelerated at a certain rate to that particular point, I can work out everything that happened before. Okay. So that's essentially what we're doing. So what the amount of dark matter and dark energy tell us is how much the brake has been pressed and how much the accelerator has been pressed to get us to the speed we are today.
Okay.
Right? So that's the way that we do this, is that we can basically work out the path of the universe in terms of its expansion.
Okay, you could say that. Yeah. So my question was... So we can figure out, as you said, how old the universe is roughly. Mm-hmm. But is that fundamentally, apart from what we just spoke about, is that fundamentally based on the fact that the light that has entered our view is that old, roughly? Because time and space.
Yes. Yeah. So you can do the same thing to chart how long it has taken light to travel from a particular source to here today.
Yes.
And this is how you calculate that, the cosmic microwave background is from around roughly 400,000 years after the Big Bang. Right? So we can age that light. But the big problem with the cosmic microwave background is that before that period, the universe was the technical phrase is optically thick, which means that you're looking into a wall. So you can't see a younger universe beyond that because you're looking at a wall.
Because you can't see it.
Yeah.
Photons haven't travelled.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's photons in there, but they're all bouncing around, and then they get to this point and they can stream straight towards you.
Oh, so something must have exploded them that way.
Not quite.
This is what I tell girls when I'm going out, mate. I sound really smart, and you're really ruining it.
So you've got to be very careful in describing the Big Bang in terms of things like explosions. Explosion is the wrong word. Right? So the universe was born in the Big Bang, and if the universe is infinite in extent now, it was infinite in extent at the Big Bang. It was born infinitely large. Okay? And what has happened in that time is after the Big Bang, the universe has cooled as the universe has expanded, and expansion just means that the distance between objects gets bigger with time.
Correct.
Right? So there's no center, right? So there's no explosion from which things...
Hang on a second. So you're trying to tell us we're not the center of the universe?
Yeah.
Well, that's 400-year-old research, isn't it?
No. It's actually...
I'm 400 years old.
It's actually better than that.
He thinks cats get Wi-Fi.
You could just flip it around and just say that everywhere is the center of the universe. Right? So
it depends on where you stand.
You're at the center. Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Grant, get around yourself.
Essentially, what really the Big Bang says is that every point in the universe is equivalent. So you're all the center or none of you are the center, right? We're all individuals. Right?
Equal rights.
So if you can imagine, in the first 400,000 years, the universe was a thick fog, and light bounced around everywhere. And then after 400,000 years, right, it became clear. The fog dispersed, and the universe became clear, and then you get the first stars forming, etc. So if you imagine that that's the universe, then if you think about yourself, here we are at roughly 14 billion years after the Big Bang. If we look out to nearby objects, that light has taken, maybe 1 million years or maybe 1 billion years to get here. That's well after the fog. So when I look back and I see those objects, I see them as being just galaxies and stars. But eventually, if I keep looking back and looking back and looking back, I will have seen light released from the fog, which is arriving at us today. And that light released at the fog is the cosmic microwave background.
That's the fog.
That's the fog. So we're looking back far enough that we're looking back far enough in time to see the fog that was the cosmic microwave background radiation.
But we don't know how far back that fog goes.
Well,
or we do.
Well, after that, so if we go back further in time, the universe must have been foggy all the way to the start. It was so dense and it was so hot. The key thing that stops the universe being a fog is when protons and electrons join together to create the first hydrogen atoms. Before that point, the universe was too hot for that to happen, so it was a fog all the way before. This is why we can't see back to the Big Bang, because it's like trying to look through a fog bank. Right? So, so we can't see that initial point. So we can't see the first 400,000 years, but after that, the universe is clear, and we're now starting to see stars and galaxies only a few, 100,000 years after that point. right? So that we're actually looking back as far as we can see.
Jesus.
So, let me ask you. I had something. I've lost it.
Well, here's something that I've always wanted to ask you as well, Geraint, because I'm
freezing under the pressure of the first video.
He's freezing under the fog. Under the fog.
Damn it! Not releasing this.
Do you believe? Do you believe in God?
Do I believe in God?
Correct.
No.
Why?
Why? As Laplace said, I have no need for that hypothesis. I mean, in terms of scientific understanding of the universe, I don't see a place where we would need to insert a godlike being in the sense of a classic religious.
Oh yes,
God.
Yes.
There are possibilities in terms of something called the simulation hypothesis, that this universe is a simulated universe, that therefore it was created by essentially a computer programmer. Is that a god?
Depends on what you got. Is really. I mean, a god is who created the universe in 7 days, who's got a white beard.
No, but that's not everybody's god though.
That's not. Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah,
of course.
God's
then how would you define God?
A creator.
A creator.
And that's why I call myself an atheist, because
an agnostic.
Agnostic, because I feel like, and
that's why I call myself a believer.
Yeah. So I feel like, and interested to hear your thoughts on this, Geraint. So I feel like there's atheists, there's agnostics, and then there's devout religious people. There's definitely a God. Praise Allah, Jesus Christ, whatever. I feel like and don't get offended when I say this, I feel like on the science of there is a God and the science of there is no God, I feel like there is equal parts absolutely zero, and I feel like you're crazy not to be agnostic. That's my theory, and that's only because we have all the science behind the Big Bang. We have everything, like science is great, and I believe in science, 100%, but it still doesn't explain what put us here, why is there consciousness, what is life, what created the universe, what was before the Big Bang. Like those questions are forever going to be, well, they might not be, and you pulled me up on this last time, they might not be forever unanswerable, but until they are unanswerable, then I feel like you're crazy to be one way or the other. That's my thoughts on the whole thing.
Okay, so the question, do you believe in God, right? It's only a few words long, but what do you mean?
Yeah.
To some people, a God is somebody who, basically comes in and plays a part in their everyday life. And if you talk to that God through prayer, then your prayers may be answered. Okay, so, is there a being that watches over each of us? And if you're a believer and you pray, then they will make sure you win the lottery or that your cat doesn't die or something.
Cat gets Wi-Fi.
That side, that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Right.
Nor I.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you go one level higher. Is there a creator in the sense of? Is there the possibility that humans were created? Are we some sort of genetic experiment of some alien race?
Are we? Yeah, that's right. Bacteria.
Possibly, but of course, the evolution, the evidence from evolution that we are part of a long line of descendants that goes way back, etc., is very, very strong. So exactly when these aliens came in and injected us with consciousness, who knows? Is a chimp conscious? Right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on chimps, but you see their behavior. Often, chimps' behavior and human behavior are not that dissimilar, right?
Yeah, especially me on a Saturday night.
Exactly.
Jacking off, just walking down the
street. Could aliens have come here and put consciousness into apes and made humans? I can't say it's 100% ruled out, but I'd say the evidence against that is pretty weak.
Yeah.
Could we be part of a simulated universe, etc.? Well, there's a possibility there. I'm not going to say the word evidence, but the universe is consistent with it being a simulated thing. But then the question of do you believe in God? It's a very different God who's a computer programmer in a higher dimensional universe that created this as possibly as a school science experiment and may have not even know that there are living creatures on one of the planets in their simulation, etc. So, look, this is why the philosophers wrestle with these questions. Do you believe in God is not just that statement. It's a whole bucket of things.
Yeah, and my thing is definitely not, it's more as the universe and the processes behind it, like maybe there was some conscious thought, something, maybe it was created. Just creator, that's the thing. I'm not a god, not a whatever, but that's the fact that we don't know. That's where and I don't really wrestle with it. I just think it's an open-ended question, so that's why I call myself agnostic, basically.
And even the term, two things that I wanted to add with this is the term created is like, you would have to assume then that someone planted a single-celled organism and then allowed for it to evolve, because that's obviously how we've evolved. But like the word create just implies that we were all just planted like an Adam and Eve type thing.
I just mean like more the universe. Like, but then it's the same question, because who created the guy that created the universe?
But it's always chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Right, but not to muddy the waters, right?
Muddy 'em.
Yeah, getting real dirty.
I'm already muddy, mate. Yeah. I'm so confused.
I'm dirty and aroused.
Okay, so if you create the universe with the notion that eventually after 14 billion years there would be humans on this planet, you've got to set up an awful lot of steps, right? Because the elements that we're made from were made in the hearts of stars, which are now dead, right? So essentially when you say somebody created the universe, they set up the gas in such a way that it would collapse and form these stars, and these stars would go through their lives and explode. This material would
not
get
even
recycled.
that, though. I don't even feel like that. I just feel like in general, like just there's some stuff. Do what you want with it.
But
okay.
But so that then is an interesting question. Did the creator set up the universe with the intention that there would be life on this planet?
Exactly.
Because as you say, if you just set it up, I mean, look, the question of life in the universe is a big one, and the question of intelligent life in the universe is an equally big question. But currently, all evidence points to this being the only sort of planet with intelligent life on it, if not life at all.
Yeah.
So if you created the universe to do something and we ended up here on this planet and we are the only life that there is in the universe, and you didn't set it out that way, then in what sense is that a creator?
Exactly.
In terms of caring about you?
No, you're right. And I don't particularly believe there is a creator.
Okay.
All I'm saying is I think that because it's an unanswerable at the moment, not unanswerable, but it's an unanswered question. That's my whole point.
The thing with science is science is just such a beautiful realm, because it's very modest. It always tries to prove itself wrong, to try to follow the evidence wherever it goes. If you look back, obviously, with everything in looking for trends and things, all we do in any realm or industry is you look at the past, you look at where we are now, and then you try to base around future trends on those two variables. And if you look back to the time pre-modern science, all this sort of stuff, when all we had were just lovely stories and myths and theology and all these people saying lovely parables, and then you look into how the spectrum and we've changed in the timeline along to modern science, the place for God, and this is what I was referring to before with the God-filling gap theory, is that the place for God has become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as we've got to this stage. So if you look on, 400 years ago, was it Galileo that was imprisoned for saying that we were not the center of the universe anymore? Was that Galileo or Aristotle?
No, I'm not sure.
Galileo, I think.
I'm trying to remember which story you mean. There's a lot of...
See, he looked up at the universe. Anyway, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But 7,000 years ago, for an example, there was an ancient civilization called the Sumerians that actually hieroglyphed or put into rocks a complete replica of our solar system, including Pluto. So they knew about Pluto, the Sumerians. I
don't think they did.
You sure? But
pretty sure they
Pluto.
didn't.
Do you know the Sumerians?
What's your point on the Sumerians and Pluto?
So what I'm saying is, all right, back then when we were very ignorant, God was a big thing. Everyone believed in God. We had to pray. The more we've come to learn, the less that sets itself as an example. So based on trends, 500 years from now, surely we're going to be looked back on this time and go, fuck, Bill, Tom and Geraint were so dumb. They even thought God was this. Now we know it's just clearly this.
Well, yeah, you're right that this notion of the God of the gaps, you insert God where you think, I can't explain that, right?
That's right.
But the thing is that in reality, with regards to science, there's no question which is off bounds, right? There's no ultimate authority that says we will not study this because this is where we think this is where we insert God.
Yep.
Right. So consciousness. Right, where does consciousness come from? Huge amount of research around the world to understand what consciousness is and all that kind of stuff. So science will continuously look at all sort of questions with regards to the workings of the universe. Now, the way that some people see God is very different to that. God would never be found in the gaps because that's not what God is about. God is about something that underpins the universe, not controls things on a day-to-day level. So again, it's how you define what your God does.
Yep.
That means whether or not you'd be worried about a particular area, being an area where you insert a God of the gaps.
Yeah.
And look, I think one of the places that is on a losing battle are people that still try and fight from the God of the gaps, the young Earth creationists, the irreducible complexity, etc. I mean, they're on a hide into nothing at some level because the number of it's not off bounds to any scientist to go and examine these questions and ask the question: how could this bacterial structure evolve? And because we know, and when it comes to dating the Earth, I think the weight of evidence is clearly on the side that it's billions of years old and not 4,000 years old. So I think the God of the gaps argument is doomed, but that's not how a lot of people see God.
Yeah,
true.
Not my example.
Yeah,
I think you're exactly right. I think the God of the gaps and structured religion, the way that we talk about it today, will be no longer. It's dropping off for sure. I totally agree.
We have to be.
That's
we
not
have to be
like
very.
we say. It's not my
understanding of God.
agnostic point.
And look, I'm a very spiritual person myself.
You believe in God, right?
Yeah, man, I believe that God has a lovely beard and he's going to send me to heaven.
JC.
Yeah, I'm very much a young Earth creator.
Shout out to the JC.
Yeah, JC, Ripper.
Johnny Christos.
He's probably smoking bogs up there now. But you're exactly right. We have to be very clear with our definitions. And, what does God mean to you, I guess, is a very good way to rebut someone asking you, do you believe in God? To inform you, my basis of spirituality... I'm going to sit you down, pal. The way that I see spirituality, and that gives me... provides me gratitude and hope and makes me more of a whole person, is looking at... And I'd be very interested to hear the science or your thoughts behind this from a scientific sense. What I believe is that, and it's not really belief, it's just a feeling that helps with my meditation and helps me become more connected to people, is that, and this isn't woo-woo to say, is that we're all connected through stardust, and there's if there is a finite amount of matter in the infinitely large universe, then we've all come from something. If that means that we were all once connected at one point through stardust or whatever it was, then we all have a duty to owe to each other, a duty of care to respect one another, because we are literally talking and interacting with people that are parts of us, if we're all stardust. And what I like to believe is that, the universe is, it's not a separate entity, but if everything in the universe is energy and flow and all that sort of thing, then it tries to work with itself to balance, like negatively charged, positively charged. We all kind of attract, it's that law of attraction sort of thing. And I feel like sending out positivity into the universe, into the world, based on thought and behavior and action, again, interpersonal interaction, you get it back. So it's like it's a karma thing. And reincarnation fits into this well, which I don't think is too woo-woo either, because... Again, if there is a finite amount of matter in the world and people are dying and people are being born, how is this matter coming back in if the universe can't produce new matter? So I think it's like this lovely flow of karma and reincarnation that we're all connected. But
reincarnation or just recycling of atoms.
Reincarnation.
I feel like coming back to life, right?
Yeah. Well, reincarnation is a tricky one. See, there's a lot more people now than there was in the past, right? So you still need to create new people.
Yeah.
So even those that get reincarnated.
But that's still a finite amount of matter, though.
there's a lot of issues there.
Yeah, please.
No. Look,
I'm very, very interested.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Like, just take me to the cleaners.
no. No. Look, I live by a slightly different philosophy.
Yeah.
But my philosophy is for people, if you have a feeling about the universe and the way that it works, it helps you sleep at night, then fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's for you, your internal processes, etc.
Yeah.
No, but then that's where that stays.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
It's not
For sure.
then for you to take that and then start to
Blowing up buildings.
Preach
well,
it.
not only that, but start telling people that you can't do this science or you can't do that science, or I don't believe in the global warming stuff, or I don't think
God, no.
this. There's all it's when you take it from there and you try and apply it to other people.
Yeah. Basically, I live just by the method that I ever thought that makes me feel good.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
So my philosophy,
Yeah,
and
please.
I'm sure people listening to this will sometimes say that I don't quite follow this, but my philosophy is taken from that great philosophical writer Douglas Adams, right? When he wrote that 2,000 years after a man got nailed to a tree for saying, "Wouldn't it be nice if we were nice to one another now and again?" Right?
God, isn't it that? Yeah, that's spot on.
Right. So my personal feeling is that people should just be nicer to one another. Now, after surviving through Sydney trains for the last few days, it's actually a pretty tough call. But I think that's an important one. As you say, you talk about karma, etc. I just think people should be nice to one another.
Yeah.
And if people are nice to one another, then yes, you get to see. Hopefully, that society would be a better place. But the rest of it, how you want to interpret the universe and how you feel about the universe, said if that makes you feel good and lets you sleep at night, then that's perfectly fine. But the problem, of course, with organized religion is that once everyone has these ideas, then they want to start saying that other people should live their lives by these rules.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's the part I don't like.
The other part that I kind of don't like as well is and I could have just been I could have just been very guilty of this. I'm not actually sure. With there is a finite amount of matter in the universe, is there not?
It's a finite amount of matter in the observable universe.
Well, yes, in the observable universe.
If the universe is infinite, there's an infinite amount of matter.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And so, but in our observable universe, which is the one that we currently live in, it's fair to say that things get recycled, and we did come from stardust. And
That's true. That's true. But not all of the atoms in your body came from the same star, and you've probably got atoms in your body that came from certain stars, and I've got atoms in my body, and they were not the same stars.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I had my own star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you actually know that because you're a mix of elements, and they're not all made in one type of star. You need some medium-sized stars, so heavy stars, right? Gold, they're only made essentially when massive stars explode, whereas carbon, that comes from lower mass stars. So you need a mix of stars, and the hydrogen in the water, that was made in the Big Bang, right? So you had a mix of everything that's gone in the universe up until this point, which is why I said that if you're going to have a creator here, just say, I'll make a big mess of this. The fact that you end up with people here is a pretty lucky chance, right?
Well, and I don't want to go back over the creator thing because I don't really particularly believe that is the case. But if we are living in an infinite universe, then it's not that. Then every circumstances is happening all at the same time, right? Isn't that the whole thing behind an infinite universe? Like, isn't an infinite
infinite monkeys. Worst of times.
Yeah, that's right. So if we are in it, it's not that crazy to believe that. Yeah, look, I mean...
But this is the stuff, I mean, like, there's just so many questions, and it gets to the point where it's like...
You can go around in circles.
We could go around in circles and be like, well, do we actually know a fucking thing?
Yeah.
Like,
hey, let me change tack for a sec, because I've got... When I lost my train of thought before, it was because we were talking about the processing power of, our human brains and mankind and what we can do in science and so forth. So there's two things that fascinate me right now, and I've gone off the one that I'm going to bring up. But the two things are where we came from, society, evolution, human culture, and if we're doing it right or wrong. We're talking to Simon Ho shortly, evolutionary biologist, and I got really fascinated. Got some really interesting stuff to bring up with him. But the other thing is artificial intelligence in the future. So the past and the future of humans, basically. So my question is, what are your thoughts on the fact that, so obviously with our processing power of our human brains right now, we are somewhat limited. What are your thoughts on when we obviously get to human-level artificial intelligence, and then shortly after that, it'll be twice as powerful as us, 4 times as powerful, 8 times as powerful, whatever. Extrapolate that out 50 years, artificial intelligence should be 1,000 times more processing speed-wise, processing power.
Exponential.
That's smarter than our human minds. What will happen with science when that becomes the case? Will that help scientists like yourself with their studies? Will that totally take over scientific studies?
Yeah,
will it help? Will it not help at all? What are your thoughts on, well, if we will reach artificial intelligence, if we will surpass human intelligence, and then what will that mean for science?
Okay, so look, I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence, and I have been for a long time, from before it was even called artificial intelligence, right? So back in the 90s,
Skynet.
People were using neural nets already to classify objects, etc. And I've used genetic algorithms a lot. And there's a wonderful there's a wonderful Scientific American article which every few years I pull out and I reread about how this is, again, 90s, 2000s, genetic algorithms to design components on a circuit board, right? So you basically give it a problem and it will try different things and design a circuit board. And, it rapidly recreated all of the Wheatstone bridge and all those other circuitry things that we know about. And then it goes beyond. Mm-hmm. And it starts to design circuits that when you just present them to somebody who understands circuits, say, what does this do? They look at it and go, I don't know. And I don't know how it takes this input signal and produces that output, and why it's got this piece here, etc. So at some level, some aspects of artificial intelligence have gone beyond the human mind level. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how apocryphal this is, of course, but now computer circuits are designed by computers, and we don't actually know quite how they work.
Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. But the thing that I still don't know is how creative an artificial intelligence algorithm will be. I mean, at some level, we will work at, I think, how to tell how to be creative, because there are lots of stories about scientific breakthroughs that come from dreams, right? Yeah. Somebody has an idea. There are famous stories about, like, even Geraint is walking through a field on a Sunday, wherever, and this massive idea pops into his head. And where did it come from? Was it bubbling along in the background, and did it come forward? But some ideas definitely have come to people as dreams, etc. So the question is, can we codify that process? Is that process lots of things going on, chug, 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 and then spitting out the answer? Or is there something else going on? Mm. Now, at some level, I think we'll get there. We will be able to get algorithms to assimilate huge amounts of data and come to conclusions and have creative thoughts along the lines of what that means. Mm. Well, whether they will always mimic what humans do, I don't know. But I have an example. Can I give you an example of why I think...
Mate, absolutely. We got you on the show.
Right. So, and I hope the person involved is not listening to this. So
Copyright Geraint Lewis.
No. So the issue is we always go about, can we make it think like a human, right? So I mentioned back in the early 90s, I knew people who were working on neural nets to classify galaxies, right? And what you would do is, as you do now with artificial intelligence, is you train things up. So you'd get all these images of galaxies, and you'd basically put them into two types. Spiral galaxies, with a lovely spiral pattern, and elliptical galaxies. And so,
what are the elliptical galaxies again?
They're featureless blobs. They look like like a rugby ball.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
And so you would get a human to go through, and you'd go, right, elliptical, spiral, elliptical, spiral, elliptical, spiral, and you'd put things into boxes. Mm-hmm. Astronomers love putting things into boxes, ellipticals and spirals. Mm-hmm. You take your neural net. You say to your neural net, right, these are all the ones classed as ellipticals. These are the ones all classed as spirals. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some new images, and I want you to classify them, right? And what you would want it to do is, right, every time a new image comes in, put it in the elliptical box, put it in the spiral box, etc., etc. Okay? You give it to a neural net, and the neural net comes back and it says, that's 0.7 elliptical, 0.3 spiral. And you go, so what it's done is it's found features that it doesn't definitively put it in one box or put it in the other. And then what you realize is that it's the human mind that's putting things in boxes.
So much error in this.
Yeah, but it's what we do. We classify things. We love to put things in boxes, and in reality, there's a continuum between things.
There's always a spectrum.
So I think we have to be careful about demanding that AI behaves like a human.
Oh, yeah.
What we have to understand is can we understand the knowledge that the AI is giving to us in terms of the way the human mind works? And as I said, you in medical imaging, right? You want to classify things. Is that cancerous tissue, non-cancerous tissue? Again, I'm not an expert in this area, but maybe the definition is not as black and white as human minds would like to have it.
Well, it's like when you talk about the way that we classify things, it's like Nick Bostrom's obviously paperclip theory with AI. I'm sure you would have heard of the theory, which is if you said if you programmed incorrectly to an AI, the problem would be, and you said, hey, we want you to take this matter here and we want you to turn it all into paperclips. And the AI is like, yep, cool, no worries. Programmed it wrong, and the programming said, we want you to turn all matter into paperclips. And the AI, this is the problem with like our definitions and our...
Oh, yes.
If AI was to go wrong, that if it was so cut and dry and we make a mistake or something like that, then the AI can go and turn every piece of matter on Earth into a paperclip, which is a bunch of floating paperclips. Yeah. So there's obviously that problem of like controlling the AI and making sure that it thinks correctly. But you're saying that we need to be the ones that think correctly, because the AI is going to be smarter than us.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to actually understand what is actually right, what is actually correct, and so forth, rather than the other way around.
As I said, we're an evolved monkey brain, and this notion that the AI must be human, I think might be the wrong way to look at this.
Yeah. Why limit ourselves?
Yeah.
Let's be more than human. Let's be smarter than humans, because we're not doing things. This is the thing. So with like obviously Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, so many of these leading minds, people that are commenting on artificial intelligence, a lot of them are talking about, Sam Harris, a good one, talking about how Nick Bostrom, the paperclip theory, how if we don't learn how to control this powerful AI, then it can come back and bite us on the ass. I feel very much like...
DeGrasse thinks it's a positive.
No, yeah, that's right. So I might have made him mention him in the wrong boat, but I was about to mention Neil deGrasse Tyson. So Neil deGrasse Tyson believes, and I feel like if we can get to something that's super intelligent, which is many thousand times more intelligent than us, say in 100 years, if Moore's law and computers keep progressing the way that they have in the past, then surely artificial intelligence is going to be okay. Even if it's not conscious, even if it's not creative, even if it's not this, that, and the other, if we say, here's the problem, the world is getting way too hot, it's killing our ecosystems, it's killing this and that. Here's the problem, we have all this famine in the world, we can't grow crops in Africa, we can't do this and that. Here's the problem, we have cancer, we want to eradicate it, it's killing too many people. Surely we'll be able to put that into a computer and spit out, hey, here's the answer, this is how you cure cancer, how come you didn't think about this? Do you believe that might be the case? Like, we might get to a point where artificial intelligence, if it has that much processing power, it will be able to fix all these problems?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hang on. But
let's get around artificial intelligence.
But let's be very, very careful here, right? So a couple of points. Number one, global warming. We know how to fix global warming. It's just that nobody wants to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's going to, if we run the AI and it says, look, seriously, stop burning the bloody coal.
Yeah.
So it's fixed it. Why didn't we?
Turn your lights off, dickhead.
Yeah. I think the more interesting one could be imagine that the AI spat out and I'll use cure cancer, but cancer, of course, there's many different kinds of diseases. But let's just take a particular kind of cancer, lung cancer. Cure lung cancer, give drug A, B, C, and give this dose of radiotherapy, and wait 3 weeks, and you do that, and it cures it, and you don't know why, right? And the AI can't explain why, but this is the way that it does it, right? Yeah. And because it's not the way the doctor would think about it. We could end up with those solutions. We could end up with solutions to problems that we, at some level... Maybe with a cancer example, we can unpick it, right? But with other problems, it might be, right, you will do this stuff and you will get the answer that you want. And we'll be going, but why? Why do we do this, that, and the other? And we can't work it out. I think that would be the interesting one, because then you would have to, have to try it. You have to be brave. I mean, if it's
and you have to put you have to put everything in the hands of these AIs.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, another thing is, let's figure out, and I know we know how to, not reverse, but like we know what we're doing to the environment, and we can fix a lot of that. But let's say we said, okay, lots of species becoming extinct, global warming, blah, blah, blah. How do we fix this problem? I mean, the smartest thing for the AI to do would just be eradicate humans. And this is obviously the problem that with the doomsday Skynet or, artificial intelligence becoming conscious and having a mind of its own, or just doing the smart thing, because that's what you ask them to do, and taking us out of the equation. So that's, surely there's that side of it. There is that side. We have to be able to harness this power, because I heard a really cool analogy, and it might have been in this book that I read. I've only read one book on artificial intelligence. It was called Our Final Invention. Obviously, once they get to as smart as us, then we're not going to be inventing anything anymore. They will be. And the analogy was, we have to be very careful with what we're doing with artificial intelligence, because effectively it'd be like waking up humans in a jail run by mice. You know what I mean? Like if we create something so powerful that it's, no matter if it has a mind of its own, if it has some sort of consciousness, if it wants to, then we're out of the equation. Like we're chimpanzees. If we wanted to get rid of chimpanzees, we'd be able to do it. We know how to do that. We're more powerful. We're smarter. We can do that. It could do that to us. So, how do you feel? Obviously, there is a lot of positives, and you get behind that. So, with the risks associated, how do you feel with the stuff that I just mentioned? Like, how do you feel with the control factor?
I think there's a couple of things which are important here. Number one is that AI is not a single thing, and there's not like going to be this giant AI switch which one day goes ching. Okay. AI is already being used. Yes. And it's just going to grow and grow and grow. Okay? So it's not a question of, one day they will turn it on and we will become slaves. It will grow. Okay? We're already using it.
Frog in boiling water.
Yeah. Yeah. The other side is that you say that we're in a prison, etc. What does it mean? What do you mean that we're in a prison? Does that mean that we suddenly have reached this point where we no longer have to work, and we can spend our times actually doing all this leisure stuff that they promised us we would be doing by now because of the robots? More time to be creative, etc. There will be a different kind of world. I can't imagine AI is going to say that they're going to basically lock us up in cells.
No. It's just an analogy for creating something that's more powerful than we can control. Should it want to go that way? So if AI becomes conscious, I agree. If that's your theory on the more free time, more time to recover, I think that's what's going to happen. I'm a very much positive on the AI bandwagon. I think it's going to be great. If AI take all of our jobs, say they take 30% of the jobs, 50% of the jobs in the economy, then everyone just works 20 hours a week. Well, I know there's more problems to it than that, but I'll fill 20 hours a week surfing, learning more Spanish, picking up a guitar. Yes, you go.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was finished. I was just talking.
I'm just going to insert something that I listen to a lot of economics podcasts, right? Oh, yeah. And
nerd,
get out.
Because suddenly you realise it's actually important.
It is.
When you get to my age and you have to think about what the hell superannuation is, then you better find out about this stuff. We already live in a society where people do jobs for the sake of doing jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because the society is built on this thing is that you get money, you spend money, and there are zombie jobs where people basically sit there spinning their wheels.
Ultimate religion, money.
So we could already move to this model where people work less. And this is this notion of, universal basic income, right? That, you basically give people enough money to live on. They don't need to do the zombie jobs.
Yeah.
Right? They can be more creative and all this kind of stuff. It's just that our economy and our world isn't built around this idea. The idea is that you work, even if the work is pointless, right? I think it's going to grow in terms of when we have more AI on board. Is either we will keep people doing zombie jobs, and we know how happy people are doing their crappy office zombie jobs, right? Or we take a serious look at the way that the world works, and we say, right, we have to do it differently, right? This notion of capitalism based on you working, we don't need to do that, right? And then you can have people being creative and doing things. Or if they want to sit on their bum all day, then they can sit on their bum all day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
This is what I love about exactly the point you just made, right? So Bill and I have both got through *Sapiens* by Yuval.
Here it is. Here.
Oh, it's right there. There it is. Yeah. Noah Haran. And what one of the points that Yuval made in that book that stood out to me the most was he was talking about the evolution of agriculture and how that shaped *Sapiens* into where we are now, where we've kind of made it easier. And for everybody just listening, not watching me right now, that's in quotes. Easier for ourselves. And the first thing is when we moved from a hunter-gatherer stage and we tried to grow wheat in a localized area because there would be an abundance of food and all this sort of stuff. And the best point that he made was that, and it's completely true if you look at it, is that we got all the wheat seeds. I'm not sure if it's seeds, but we brought the wheat closer to where we lived, and that meant an abundance of food. However, in doing so, these people that wouldn't, more often than not, immediate return, very primitive, hunter-gatherer, now had to fend for the wheat and look after the wheat all day to protect it from birds, to make sure it didn't become a go-off and all this sort of stuff. And they became full-time farmers. So essentially, the wheat imprisoned us. Because if you think about it, there they were. That wasn't easier. Yes, we have more of an abundance of food, but they have to look after it all the time.
The wheat domesticated us.
Yeah, it domesticated us. And if you look at that trend, everything up until this point now, the beginning of agriculture to where we are now, has seemingly made our lives, or has tried to make our lives easier. Every little revolution of technology is going off the front foot of going, this will make our lives so much easier, more communication than ever, all this sort of stuff. And yet, from the trends, you hear that people are working more and more, people are more unhappy, all these luxuries like holidays and are actually necessities, and they're necessary escapes because we have to do all this stuff to make sure that our life is easier. And then, I mean, like, the point you made is just spot on, and I just find that fascinating. I can't remember I had a question with it, but
I'll jump in there. I think with the rise of agriculture, obviously, I mean, we needed to tend to the fields, and we needed to. They say that we now work more than hunter-gatherers, but it also freed up a lot of people to be specialists, which is where most people believe it was where really art and science came from. Science, further down the line, but art and science came from agriculture, which is like obviously, because one of the big questions for Simon, evolutionary biologist, later I want to ask him is, did the agricultural fuck it for everyone?
Yeah.
Are we happier now? So, but the good thing is, like, we did get art and science really from the agricultural revolution. You could argue. So I feel like it's just the universal basic income is just the next step. So here's more free time. So I think that in, like, say we get to computers taking artificial intelligence taking 50% of our jobs. There'll also be new fields that people will work in with artificial intelligence. It's like the internet, like horse and cart. The cars killed the horse and cart. Mm-hmm. People worked in automotive, and then before the internet killed a lot of jobs, it provided a lot of jobs. Everyone's an IT guy now, So there'll always be new things that'll pop up in the economy to work if you want to work. But I feel like we'll be a totally different species. We'll be more loving, more caring, more art, more religion, more free time, more passion. Because if you gave me, if it was universal basic income, so everyone works basically 40 hours a week, that's what you say, 40 hours a working week. If you said to me, all right, yeah, you've got Adventure Fit, it's your passion, that's what you love to do, here, have the same amount of money, here's 20 hours a week. I'll go, well, do I want to put more hours into my passion project of what I love? Or do I go and stay at 40 hours a week? What I do is creates happiness for people. It's a really positive thing. It makes me happy. So I have the choice. Or do I go and spend more time studying Spanish? Do I start... I'm artistic. I used to do art in school. I used to love it. But I don't do any of that because I don't have any time. Do I go and start an art class? Do I go and spend more time with my friends? Like, I think it's going to be the greatest thing ever, artificial intelligence. I don't think it'll be doomsday. Like I say, I mean, what do I know really? But outside looking in...
Oh, well, you know what you know.
Yeah, that's right. Just my general feel for the whole thing is that it's going to revolutionise the world in...
Well, it already
nothing
has.
but a positive way.
It's going to keep revolutionising the world.
Yeah. I'm very positive about it. Of course, there will be negatives. There will be downsides, as it is with all technologies. AI will make its way into the military as much as it will make it into the commercial world, right? So there will be AI on the battlefield, and that I find particularly worrisome. You know.
Well, there is. I mean, drone warfare is insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It is. It is. But overall, I mean, we look. I'm not going to put words into the mouths of people who are experts on evolution. You mentioned that thing about, you know, we started growing wheat, we became imprisoned, but at some level as well, it did make our lives easier, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 49 this year, right? If I was
24, mate.
If I was,
no, you look 49.
If I was in a hunter-gatherer society, I would probably be dead by the time I'm 30. Much more likely that, and I probably would have died before I was 5. So, you know, we've talked about this imprisonment, but we have gotten a lot longer life because of it. And because of the science that came out of that, we can now fly to the other side of the world.
Yes.
But you're right, everybody is short on time. And I actually think that is a... what's the right word of saying this?
Is it a subjective issue, do you feel?
Well, look, I really feel that if we really thought about it, we could free up time.
I agree.
There are people who are employed to make paperwork for us to fill in, to give them paperwork on blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? If we could do that and people could still live a life where they have food and shelter and enjoyment in their lives, then I think that would be a good thing.
I absolutely agree. I feel that I currently at this stage of my life I'm busier than I've ever been, but it's completely filled with things that I love.
Yeah.
And so I mean, and the onus is on us to make sure that we live a happy life. You know, I feel, and I very much feel that capitalism, although, you know, to get back and speak in economics, capitalism, aside from the fact that there's a lot of market failure, you know, there is with sort of any economic structure, but capitalism is set up to thrive if you work hard, you know, and it's on us to do that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, you can look at the agricultural revolution and you can go, oh, you know, it's just fucked us around because we have to do this, this, and this, but you know, we live in abundance right now.
Absolutely.
And
wow,
how do you mean?
We?
Yeah, I
do.
Totally.
Wait, let me jump in there then.
Yeah.
We are, us three sitting at the table here are the 1%.
Yeah.
The 0.5% economically with what we're able to do, what we're able to buy, our quality of life. Most of the world live below the poverty line.
Okay.
We have to remember that.
No, they don't.
Okay, so let me talk about, like, let's say for example, Africa. Why is there so much starvation in the world when we say that, okay, we all, and like look at like Latin America, so much of it is third world, living below the poverty line. And maybe I was wrong in that statement, that cut and dried statement. But let's say we live in abundance. We do. Capitalism works for us.
So you're talking more about privilege though, yeah?
No. But capitalism works for us. We live in abundance. But there's a huge portion of the world that lives in the opposite of abundance.
Okay, so a couple of points. Number one, do you know Hans Rosling? No. I'll have to send you his links. He has some beautiful talks on this, is that the number of people living in poverty today is a fraction of what it was in the 70s, right? Mm-hmm. The world is becoming economically more equitable, right? Yes, there are people in the world without food, but that is just a problem of people not bothering to send food to the people that need food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So worldwide, we are in abundance.
Worldwide,
it's more of a greed factor.
There's quite clearly, given the gut lines of a number of people, plenty of food in the world.
Yeah.
The point is that look, here we are in Australia, quibbling about how much foreign aid we want to give. Right? We could send plenty of food overseas.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's a good point.
But, you know, it's all down to people wanting to be nice to other people.
Yeah. And greed, I feel like.
But you made the good point, Geraint, that, and this is what I was going for. Global equity has increased from before we started the agricultural revolution.
Just the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, food-wise, to a degree, is what I was.
But also, too, you have to remember within capitalism that people think a lot about the 1% and they think about who owns the majority of the world's income. But there's no such thing as just this 1% barrier that everyone below can't jump into. Capitalism is based around the fact that if you work hard, you get what you want. So the 1% is constantly changing all the time. Because people's assets, and I mean, people are growing, people are falling.
Yeah. So to jump in there though, I think that it's not. We aren't all born equal with the same opportunities. Like
in terms of opportunity, correct.
But
that's a fact. It's not a belief.
So I remember walking Everest Base Camp, and on the way back down, I'd seen would have been the 300th, pre-14-year-old kid carrying 100 kilos on his back, walking up, with building material, rice, whatever, up to the top of the foot of Everest Base Camp. These kids get born into the Sherpa lifestyle. They're born in Nepal, they're born on one side of the boundary, or they're born in a certain geographical area, and that's what they do for their entire life, So I think working hard is great if you're in the ability to work hard and to move up in the world. These kids work as hard as, and they'll work that hard till they're 70 years old, 80 years old, till they can't anymore, So they'll work as hard as anyone on the planet, and they won't move up in the world.
But then
that's again, it's culture. It's not the kids' fault. It's not. There is still global abundance, but again, it goes back to greed, the way we've set up our structure, societies, and.
But the reason that kid can get that work is because there's a first world person who has come there to climb a mountain. If nobody bothered to climb Everest, they would be subsistence farmers with nothing. Right? So, it's you might look at it and just say, okay, this is a very tough life. But then you have to think about if there wasn't the influence of first world people coming in, right? Would their life be better or would it be worse?
Well, I think it would be the same. But they're not living a good life right now with the economy that comes in from
That's what
from
you
Nepal.
think, though.
No.
Based on your life?
No, I'm just talking about.
They could be the happiest kid in the world.
No,
it depends on how you measure happiness.
That's right. But I'm not talking about happiness. I'm talking about working hard.
But you're saying they don't live a good life?
I'm saying they live a hard life. No matter how hard they work, they're not going to be able to. And they still live in abject poverty, basically. Like, I know these guys. I've got a team of Sherpa guys in Nepal, and they live such hard, harrowing lives. If they were subsistence farmers, they wouldn't be probably much better off, or much worse off. But they're not much better off now. Like, if you look at how hard, and they could be very happy, but they're set for a very hard life.
Okay, but I think
no matter how hard they work,
I think a hard life is a good life. I actually believe that the harder you work, the harder I've worked, and the more I've done in my life, the happier I am. And they could look at you the exact same way.
Yeah, you're right, and that's right. We don't really know. But I've been into mines in Bolivia. I've been into La Paz, is the highest capital city in the world. They have a mine called Potosi, I think it is, Potosi Mines in Bolivia. And we did the tour of the mine. You go and blow up dynamite, whatever. But the main thing is you go into the mine and you see the conditions that these guys work in. These guys in the mines, they work, I don't know how many hours there are in a week, but they work 90 to 100 hours a week. They get one day off a month to spend with their family. They provide for their family. Every single one of them are 5'4" with total hunchback, bent over. Their bodies are trash because the mines are only built for 4 foot and they're like 5'5".
Yeah.
Their bodies are humanly trash. Like, I think, and they work harder than, again, same example of working as hard as you can possibly work in your life. You can't work any harder than these guys. And they could be the happiest people on the planet. But I'm going to have a guess that they're not.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to... And I think you don't have to, but I think most people would agree with me, So they're working as hard as you can possibly work, and they're trying to get... If you could give them more money for working harder, they would take that money. They're trying to provide for their family. And no matter how hard they work, to your point, they're not going up in the ranks. They're not getting an easier life. They're not getting more money coming in. Okay. That's my point.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point. And again, I'm literally just playing devil's advocate for the benefit of us all expanding our knowledge. My thing that I would say to that, right, is that by having that job, they are providing for their family. Ignorance is always bliss. No one knows. We don't know. We have I believe that we all three of us have good lives. We're all happy people. We're all joking, laughing, making dick jokes and things.
You got any dick jokes, Grant?
Yeah. From an astrophysical sense. But there's things out there that we probably don't even know about that would make our lives 10 times better. I remember I watched a video of a guy who was a cacao farmer in Southern America. And it was the first time he'd ever...
It's pronounced cocaina, my friend.
Yeah, no, cacao, as in for chocolate.
Oh, it's a joke.
Oh,
mate.
Sorry, yeah. But I remember the first time he ever ate chocolate. And this guy seemed like a really happy guy. But the first time he ever had chocolate, he had the secretion of dopamine and all that sort of stuff from the sugar. And he was just like, what the fuck? But there'd be something out there that makes us 10 times happier. I think happiness is the one thing that you always have to measure someone's life by. And... we're all along this path trying to find more and more happiness. But I think it's also very important to try to, as best you can, step into the shoes of other people and think about what makes them happy. I remember my mum just got back from India, and there was this family of like 12 people living in this room that was like an eighth the size of this. They're all the happiest people in the world. And I think that the more opportunity, the more privilege you have, sometimes the harder it can be to attain happiness because you have all this abundance. And I'll just use the Netflix analogy. How hard is it to fucking find something to watch? Because there's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
Isn't it very easy when...
You're right. And
there's
they say, and I say they as in like studies. That the happiest people on the planet are... They also say this about Switzerland and Denmark, whatever. They say Vanuatu, and I've been to Vanuatu and stayed with local villagers there, and they have nothing... But they don't particularly work hard. They have nothing. They have no Wi-Fi. They have no. They live off the land, whatever, and they're the happiest people on the planet. And I've stayed with these guys. They have a smile on their face all day, every day. Couldn't be happier. 100%. And they don't have anything that we have that we think is important and think is big houses, cars, fucking ability to fly across the planet, YouTube, iPhones. Don't know why I said YouTube, but they're happy. They're for sure. But yeah, I think I still think there's people that unduly work hard and can't get out of the...
I think as a fundamental statement, sorry, Geraint, as a fundamental statement...
Geraint's thoughts on
he's the guest. Sorry, mate.
You can go,
As a fundamental statement, I think we can all agree on that everyone is entitled to the same opportunity as everyone else, but at the same time, it's...
I disagree with that.
I don't. Every human being... I think it's pretty cut and dry that every human being should be entitled to the same opportunity.
Should be, for sure. I agree that they should be, but I don't agree that they are, just to my point.
No, that's what I'm saying. Everyone in...
No, you said are, and then you said should be. I agree with should be.
Sorry. Well, should be is 100% what I meant. 100%. Everyone deserves the same rights and the same opportunities. But happiness is a different thing. Great.
So again, I will send a link to you guys to the talks by Hans Rosling, who has now died, but he's got these lovely talks about how much better the world is today in terms of vaccination, access to medicine, income, etc. The world is a better place, even though we're focused on the world going to hell in a handbasket. It's a better place than it was when I was a child in the 70s. One of the things I think is going to change the world is when, as this all moves up, especially like countries in Africa and India.
India's booming.
China is getting there as well. Is that there's going to be an immense amount of brain power coming online, right? There already is in China and India, but less so in Africa. And everyone's wondering, where's the next Einstein, etc. Now, the next Einstein is not necessarily a German man. It might be currently a small girl living in a village in Africa who will go to university because the world is improving this way. And I am very positive about the world from that side of things when we have more people who can bring that creative side online. Because
totally agree.
One of the reasons that white people have dominated science is because we got that little bit ahead in terms of the Industrial Revolution. Yep. The rest of the world just has to catch up.
For sure.
We're not intrinsically smarter, right? And we will get these people coming online. And I am looking forward to the day when we're talking about the world-class universities of Central Africa and of South America, and they're already there, of course, but more of them.
Yes,
right. And I think it will change the world.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Hey, Geraint, I wanted to ask: Do you get much into politics? Have you seen the current state of US college campuses with things like what you just said, with white privilege and that?
I try. The one aspect of the world that disheartens me at the moment is politics. I think I'm not happy about politics in Australia. I'm not happy about politics in the UK, where I'm from. Could I be happy about politics in the US? I mean, I find that one aspect of the world which is very frustrating. The question about universities in the US and this notion of white privilege, etc., is an absolute minefield because it's not simply a question about the universities. It's a question of the universities and the history that country has. Right? And I'm not saying that Britain is being any better because it's got a long colonial history, which a lot of it is very dark, etc. But you can't take a university and talk about the politics going on a university campus without taking into account and the context of the history of what brought that university into being and the people at that university.
I think the reason why I asked was because the statement you said before was it's not the fact that white people are smart or anything, it's the fact that we were just allowed better access or better a greater opportunity, and then we advance it, and it's time for everyone else to come up with.
Yeah.
I think there's a general leftist progressive movement of people that would probably disagree on that statement, specifically from what I've seen in on the US college campus front. But a lot of people that would probably say it's actually that white people should maybe check their privilege and come back down to give everybody else access, and that's why I wanted to open the floor up there.
I mean, what do you mean by check their privilege? What do you want them to do?
Well, this is why I agree with you. We spoke about economics before, and we spoke about how capitalism, again, there's a lot of things wrong with it, but the economic structure of capitalism is designed for incentive, and it's designed to reward those that work hard, right?
Yeah.
Opportunities, there are different races and different groups and societies that have different sorts of opportunities, and for sure, white people, as we just spoke about, they have probably, generally speaking, have been given greater opportunity than others. But a lot of people don't like capitalism because they just say, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And they don't see that side of where it's like, well, if you just work really hard, irrespective of the opportunity, you still may get somewhere. And I think that's what they're all going from.
Look, I said it's a minefield. My feeling is that I would like to think that everybody has the opportunity to go to university. I think that we really have to consider. So now, if you apply for a grant with the Australian Research Council, they want to know about your career. Relative to opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that is a phrase that should go through everything.
Yeah.
Right? That it must be taken into account your background at some level. That, I did not... and so relative to opportunity in the ARC grant means, do you have periods where you couldn't do research because you were ill or because you had a baby or other reasons that you took time out to explain why your CV is not as shiny as this bloke who had never had a hiccup in his life, right? I think that has to filter its way through the system. And personally, I would like to see more scholarships for people to go to university, right? It's an expensive thing. For somebody from out in the sticks to come to the University of Sydney, it's not a cheap thing to do. I would love to see more scholarships. And who are the people that could fund scholarships? It's the very wealthy, right? That's what I would like to think that they would do. But in Australia, that's not part of the culture. But in the US, it is. People could do that. People tend to prefer to have buildings named after them. But you could run scholarships to support people. And if there are people from disadvantaged backgrounds, etc., who didn't have the opportunities, then you should be able to provide that support.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So we do have to get Geraint out of here at some point. We got obviously you've got a busy day. I want to get us quickly. Have you got a little bit more time?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
All right. So I want to just bring us back to your main field of study. I want to ask you and we may have covered this the first time we spoke. I don't quite remember. So what is your? If you were to say, all right, I believe that my research lends me to believe or whatever. Just to have a rough guess, basically, is what I'm asking you. Do you believe we are living in a multiverse, or do you believe we are living in our universe, and that's our universe?
I must side, I think, with this notion of our universe being one of many universes in a multiverse. As I think we did speak about last night, I wrote this book on the fact that our universe seems to have just the right kind of mix of conditions for there to be complexity in life. And as we spoke about, that's taken by some people as evidence that there is a creator. But there is a natural way of doing that, and that's by having multiple universes, each with their own different laws of physics. And we basically have won some sort of roll of the cosmic dice to get the right laws of physics for there to be complexity in life. The big problem that we have is that this notion of the multiverse is really just a notion. there's not a rigorous, scientific, mathematically based theory of how a multiverse works. So there are still many, many open questions, right? And it might be that it's not a multiverse. This is the only universe. But then there are other issues that need to be tackled. But I said my leanings are towards the fact that this is one of many universes. It seems very weird if this is it, actually, right? Yeah. To me,
I always just think of what's on the. It was the same. It's the other end of the question of what happened before the Big Bang. I always think of what's on the other end of the universe.
As in the end.
But just to say, okay, if this is our universe, basically, say we can contain it in a spherical ball for the sake of the analogy, then what's over here? That's the thing that makes me.
It's an interesting question. So again, it depends what you mean. So in some ideas of the universe, that beyond this ball of the stuff we can see, there's just more stuff, just like it is here, that goes on forever. Or you might have slightly different laws of physics in various places. So this is stuff Max Tegmark has written about, right? So you could fill the universe with different patches of different physics. Now, in a multiverse idea is that our 3 dimensions will be separate to somebody else's 3 dimensions. So you have an infinite universe here and you have an infinite universe here, right? Which are not connected to each other. And there might be an infinite number of infinite universes in the multiverse, etc. So you can play this game is that you can have very distinct universes, not in contact with other universes that might have different laws of physics, or this could be all there is. It could be infinitely larger. There are different laws of physics out there, and it's without going into too much details, there could be the possibility that we could explore some regions of this larger overall universe that we're in. Right? So, there's a whole host of speculation and ideas about what the multiverse could be. But I would say that the notion that we are it, that this is it, makes me uncomfortable. A lot of it from this notion of fine-tuning and the fact that...
we're just so lucky to actually be in the position that we're in.
Yeah.
All right, and my other thing that I want to just touch on before we get out of here, and you probably know what's coming, but we're talking to an astrophysicist here. Why don't we ask her? So, do you believe we are the only intelligent life in the universe?
All right, so
it's on. Do you believe in aliens?
Yeah. Okay, I've actually given this a lot of thought recently, and the conclusion that I've come to, and talking with a lot of people about this, is that it does look like that we are the only intelligent species, at least in our galaxy, if not nearby. And I'll quantify what I mean by that. So,
that sucks.
so the universe.
Other galaxies, right?
Yeah. The universe is 14 billion years old, right? The Earth is 4.5 billion years old, life on Earth 3.5 billion years, etc. But stars that could host planets that could have life have been around for a long time before our sun was born. So if intelligent life was easy, you'd expect there to be intelligent life in the universe, which is many millions of times, if not billions of times older than our life here, right? Now, what's going to happen with that life? Well, you could imagine that it just sits on its planet, but it doesn't sound about right.
Curiosity.
Curiosity, and the fact that you need more energy. Right?
Yes.
Right? So you start to harness the energy of your star, right? We would notice that. If a civilization arose that could harvest the energy of stars, right? What they would do is that they would take the starlight and it would be reprocessed into infrared. And if they could do that in one star, then they could get to the next star and do it there. So essentially, if you have intelligent life that starts to explore and starts to use the energy of entire stars, then very quickly they take over a lot of stars and they start reprocessing that starlight into infrared and lower radiation. But we see starlight.
Well, let me say this though.
But that's life as we know it.
So how many?
Sorry, but just to tackle this, what you're saying is that the life as we don't know it doesn't use energy.
Doesn't harness the energy of stars for their own intergalactic travel.
But it's the most obvious energy source around, isn't
I know.
it?
As we know.
So to my point, so how many species since single-celled organisms has lived on planet Earth?
Oh,
A zillion, right? A zillion. Okay, so just a crazy large number. As far as we're able to, understand, we're probably the only one species that's been able to think about or say, or theorize about harnessing the power of a star. And I mean intelligent as in us sitting here speaking, traveling the cosmos, whatever.
Consciousness.
Yeah. So, all right. So are you saying that there may be, say for example, dinosaurs, right? Say dinosaurs, or chimpanzees, or an alligator, or whatever. They're not going to be, traveling through space. They're not going to be harnessing the power of stars, going into other galaxies and reaching out to us, sending radio waves, whatever. But they're alive. So living...
Well, you said
sentient,
intelligent life.
I know I did, but it depends on what you call intelligence again.
Okay,
like,
sure.
is an intelligence a sentient being that goes and lives in families and whatever?
Okay.
So it's kind of, again, what are you defining?
Sure, yeah.
But my definition was kind of like, outside of like single-celled organisms and sludge,
Yeah.
is there anything... Yeah. Do you still believe that would be the case? That there'd be no dinosaurs kicking around anywhere? Dinosaur aliens?
So let's think about what we're saying here, right? I think that life possibly as pond scum might be common throughout the universe, single-cell, very simple organisms. Now imagine that complex organisms are common, right? So you can play the numbers game, right? How many potential planets there are, right? So you'd have all of these potential planets. And what we're saying is that there's complex life everywhere, but only on this one planet were the conditions right for one of the creatures to start thinking in a slightly different way.
Yep.
And it didn't happen on any of the other planets, thousands, millions, billions of other planets, right? It only takes a couple of them to become intelligent 1 billion years ago and to move off their planet to rapidly colonize in a galaxy, right? So what we're saying is that what we would like is that the evolution of complex life is easy, but then that step to intelligence is somehow how hard.
Yes.
Right? But in fact, it seems that part is the hard part.
Yeah, exactly. The step is a lot easier for the next part.
Yeah. Well, why is no one else taking that step? Look, the thing is...
Why would they assume that we're intelligent life then? Like, why would they want to reach out to us? That's assuming that we're like the fact that we don't know the fact that you believe there's no other life out there, intelligent life, makes me believe that they would think that. Like, why would they try to bother contacting us?
Well, no, I'm not talking about contact.
We might be the most. We may or may not be. We may be the. If there are other intelligent life forms, we may be the smartest life form in the universe.
Yeah, but we could be the dumbest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We don't know. So, but my thing is to the intelligent life theory. So, again, going back on the planet Earth, so 4 billion years, right? And we've had all these organisms, all these species, all the way up to us right now. So, how long we had radio waves?
Since like the 1930s or something, isn't it?
100 years nearly, right?
Yeah.
So if you work out, and I'm not good, like I need a calculator, but if you go 4 billion years divided by 100, so it's going to be 0.000 whatever. That's how long we've had complex organisms for however long, whatever.
Yep.
But that's the space of time that we've been able to send out radio waves, or to go to the moon, or to think about going to Mars. So, but we've had humans that can communicate for a long time before they had radio waves. So.
Okay. Can I to pull things slightly to the side, because
get in there, brother.
People
certainly can, Geraint, Louis.
People mess up a few things here, right? So
You're not telling me that I messed up, are you? Okay.
So you're talking about radio waves and you're talking about communication, right? So archaeologists, right? When they go off tromping around, what do they tend to find?
Bones.
Bones? But
rocks.
Dust.
No, they're geologists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
What's the answer?
So you find rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay? Humans have produced rubbish from the time we lived in caves. We've produced pollution, okay? We have produced waste, and we've produced waste heat, okay? So one of the natural things is that you produce waste. Now, if you've got a civilization in a galaxy, right, they produce waste. And I don't mean there's bits of plastic, etc., but one of the key things is that any civilization that occupies a large volume and is using energy equivalent to the energy of stars reprocesses that energy from starlight to infrared, right? Because that's what you do. You must produce waste, okay? We don't see the signature of infrared waste from civilizations. We see starlight. People are not harvesting starlight. They're not producing waste that would be obvious. So it's not a question of contact. It's the fact is that like the archaeologists that find the guys in New Zealand, when they find the bones of Moas that have been there, you know what's been going on. You know that there was people there before. When we look out into the universe, we don't see evidence of this waste heat product that would be produced by a civilization and a big civilization would have to harness a huge amount of energy. And that's the signature that's missing. So it's not the fact that we're looking for their I Love Lucy.
Yes.
Right? It's that we don't see the waste they produce.
Yeah, and just so I'm understanding what you're saying. So, say for example, you took humans out of the equation on Earth, and you just had every other living organism. Would they produce the same waste product that you would see if you're looking at the elements on Earth from a telescope from another planet?
You could work out that there's life on Earth because the atmosphere is a non-equilibrium, right?
Yep.
We should have a carbon dioxide atmosphere like Mars or Venus. We're non-equilibrium because there's life going on Earth. You could work out you could see the waste. The sunlight is being reprocessed into infrared, right? But it's actually, because the way trees work, it's actually trees capture that energy, right? Which is then released when the trees are burnt or break down, etc.
Yeah.
So we can see that there's that processing going on. But it would be even more extreme if you were trying to develop a method to capture lots of starlight. I mean, you think about it. Right? A solar panel collects sunlight, runs your refrigerator, which makes infrared.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially that's what you would do on a giant scale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we don't see that. And the startling thing is that if you have a civilization that can travel from one star to another, and it doesn't have to travel at really high speeds, just chugging along, take a few thousand years to get to each star, right? Establish itself and then move on to the next star, harness the energy, move on to the next star. You would colonize an entire galaxy in 10 million years. Yeah. And 10 million years is nothing.
Yeah, right? on the cosmic scale. Yeah.
So if in the last few billion years there was a intelligent life in our galaxy that could do this, they would have done it. This is the Fermi paradox, right?
Yeah.
So
can I just ask a question then? Because that's just opened me up to my mind's been blown. There's that age-old thing of the fact that then, millions of civilizations intelligent life could have existed billions of years ago, or that they have occurred over 10 billion times if you look at the sheer rate of possibility out there. But isn't it so for our solar system and then our galaxy, the conditions for even single-celled organisms to exist have only come to fruition in the past couple of million years, or hundreds of million. For life to occur,
billion years.
So we've had life on Earth for about 3.5 billion years.
3.5 billion years. Okay, yeah. So the conditions of our galaxy or our solar system have only allowed for life to occur within the last 3 billion years.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's remember what happened is the Earth was hot.
Yes.
And it cooled down such you could get liquid water. And that took a while. Yep. And it was very rapidly after that we got our first life on Earth.
Yes. Does that remain constant for the rest of the universe? Or is it just our Earth?
Nobody knows.
So then it could just be the fact that there are millions and millions of humans out there that each can't connect to each other. Like, can we see that far?
But one thing I can tell you is that if there are other Earths out there, they're not going to be the same age as this planet. They could be 1 billion years older or 1 billion years younger. And it's the ones which are 1 billion years older are the ones that are interesting, because if the process of life played out the same.
Very linear.
Yeah, played out the same way there as it is here. That means that the intelligent life on that planet has got a billion-year head start on us.
And
so
it only takes 10 million
they could have become extinct.
But to go...
We're the only living...
Yeah, that's another thing that,
now.
But the thing with the Fermi paradox, and talk about the fact that if there was something that was intelligent life, they wanted to get off the planet, colonize another place 10 million years. Again, I go back to the thought of like, there's been a zillion... So, if we're talking about life, we have, as far as we know, because we're the only planet that we know of life, we know that there's been a zillion species.
Yep.
And only 1 in a zillion have ever thought about colonizing another planet.
Yep.
So there could be a zillion planets with a zillion species on each planet, but we're just the 1 in a zillion that actually have thought about colonizing another planet. So you know what I mean? So
intelligent life could be rare, right?
Yeah.
Truly intelligent life could be rare. And I think that's what it's pointing towards. Intelligent life is rare. I actually think that means that complex life is rare.
So then that kind of makes me err on the side of spirituality then. Like if we're...
We turned religious.
You essentially made me believe in Jesus Christ.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. You made me believe in God.
But you broke his brain with science.
Yeah. You broke my brain the reverse way. Yeah. You made me go down.
Yeah, well,
it made me so smart I'm dumb.
It might be the case. It might be, and actually, I actually see it as possibly a flip side to spirituality, right? In that if you were going to be a creator and you're going to make this great big universe, what a bloody waste of space.
Yeah, that's right.
Put life on one planet.
Nah, now I'm back.
See, I feel like there's life everywhere. I don't know enough about it with the the radiation that you're talking about. I know we can see the elements that can predict if there's life on the planet, but surely there's a lot of places we can't see, and maybe we're just the only we're just the only people that want to go and colonize another planet. Surely because we're anthropomorphizing basically other species on other planets to be like us.
Right. So, but you play the flip game. So you say, let's pretend intelligent life is common, right? Let's say that there are 1 billion intelligent life forms in the Milky Way. You only need one of them to have that explorer feeling to them.
Yeah.
Only one.
Yes.
The others can all stay at home, right? Only one. So it's very, and it's very bad to make this argument that all aliens will do this, because we know that we look at people on Earth and we see the spread of people on Earth, right? There are explorers and there are stay-at-home people in the one species.
Yeah.
So you only need one alien in one species to say, right, let's explore. So I don't think it's anthropomorphizing to do this. I think what it is, to try and say, they must all not be like us, is where you make a...
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So your example there...
How's old mate without a PhD? Having a crack.
No. But like if so you said that if there's 1 billion intelligent species, it only takes one. Well, as far as we know, we're the 1 in a zillion.
Right.
We're literally we're probably still of what we know.
Yep.
What's been on this planet. So surely it's not out of the realms of possibility, I believe, because like you say, 1 billion is a really big number. If there are 1 billion intelligent species, there's been more than a billion more than a billion complex organisms probably in the history of this planet, and only one has even thought about colonizing another planet. So that's my. What do you got there, mate?
I'm just trying to work out what the actual comment was there.
Check, mate.
No, you're not religious now, are you?
No.
Quit your job.
Okay, so there was nothing fundamentally there to stop dinosaurs becoming intelligent, right? And they had brains. Those brains could get bigger. They could have. It probably took an accident of evolution would have taken an accident of evolution for there to be intelligent dinosaurs, right? And they would have had 66 million years on us, right? So in 66 million years for an intelligent creature, what would they do? Right? Yes, so we're the only intelligent creature on this planet. in that sense. But again, even if there's zillions and zillions of other complex life out there, are you saying that nowhere in any of those was there an intelligent creature that thought about getting off?
No, that's right, and that's the problem. I get it. I totally 100% get it. I just mean, I think it's not outside of the realms of possibility if we're the one out of the huge number that we can't put our head of multi-celled organisms basically on this planet, and we are the only one that we believe which probably has done what we're talking about. Then I'm just playing devil's advocate. It's not outside the realms of possibility that there are a zillion and we're the only ones that have gone, fuck, let's go to Mars.
I think what we have to ask then is what are the environmental conditions, if we believe, that allow for consciousness to evolve? Because if we're saying that consciousness is what makes us intelligent and that's what makes us explore and become curious, then how did that come into existence?
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother podcast.
Define consciousness.
I think therefore I am.
Yeah.
I'm aware of myself.
Well, a dolphin is aware of itself.
Okay.
And they split from us a long time ago.
I would say they're conscious.
Yeah, so consciousness evolved separately in two different animals.
So then why aren't dolphins doing what we're doing?
Well, because it's very hard to make fire at the bottom of the ocean.
True.
And they haven't got hands.
Yeah. Okay, so then what would you say consciousness is defined by?
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know. I mean, I know what I mean when I say that I'm conscious, but I don't...
Self-aware. So dolphins are self-aware?
Yeah.
Completely 100% self-aware.
They live in families. They're sad when they lose a loved one.
But that's just emotional and social intelligence. How do we know that that's self-awareness?
Well, we're not saying that consciousness is 100% self-awareness. It's just... But they're... Look, from my understanding, which I know nothing, but they live in families, they do things together, they're a really smart animal, they communicate, they feel emotions, they feel when they lose a loved one, whatever, their tones and noise they make. So, they have language, language that we don't understand, complex language.
Let's say then, consciousness do dolphins have the ability to ask the big questions?
Is that consciousness?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's not consciousness, but that's what
I know people that don't have the ability to ask big questions.
Yeah. True. Yeah, but that's a very specific thing.
But just as an aside then, okay, we're evolved creatures. Mm-hmm. So like the AI switch, there was no consciousness switch.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right? Did it evolve?
Well, if it didn't evolve, what happened?
Well, this is when spirituality... I think Joe Rogan believes that when chimps started coming down from the trees and eating psychedelic mushrooms and things, that's what helped switch consciousness to evolve.
But then why didn't chimpanzees and
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, so I read a book recently that was talking about, and again, I read a book, good on me, but evolution and the fact that they've done studies on, and I don't know whether it's gibbons or whatever, but there's apes out there that make certain noises to our ears, untrained, without breaking it down phonetically or whatever. Well, not phonetically, but listening very closely to it. It sounds like grunts, everybody's making a grunt. So there's studies that have shown that these gibbons, or again, forgive me for bro sciencing this, but these gibbons, if you break it down and listen to it very, very distinctly, they make slightly different calls that make the whole tribe of family of gibbons respond in the same way.
Yep.
So with a pitch at the end is danger from above, there's a hawk or whatever, everybody drops to the ground or everybody escapes, runs away. Then if there's a snake, it's low at the end or whatever, something like that, everybody goes up a tree, all the gibbons go up a tree. So that's communication. So when we say, how did we get to this point where we're having this conversation and having an intellectual conversation, we know that at the lowest level, or not the lowest level, but at our ancestral level to chimpanzees and stuff, they are communicating. They do have a language, and that's, probably where we were, I don't know how long, 50 million years ago, whatever. It's there. The footprints of, where our language came from are evident, you know, so...
well, then the question is, because we also know that
we got so many questions.
I'll finish off in this line before we do 6 from 6. Oh no, we've already done 6 from 6.
We've got Simon in 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
Yeah, he probably knows a lot more than
knows all that.
topics.
But this is one thing that we can add, and then I want to quickly talk about your book because I want to plug that. Okay.
We should do 6 from 6 too because our questions have totally changed.
True. Well, we'll do
a
6 from
quick
6
6
and a
from
quick.
6.
We'll do a
Quick
book
6
and then
from
6 from 6.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
We know that trees communicate. We know that they can send different pheromones down a line of trees to protect themselves from danger. But that's still a very primitive, immediate return thing. Help, escape. Like what you just said is just help, escape, escape. We're all communication, I wouldn't say, is a clear example of intelligence. Okay, at least on what I'm saying. But if we're looking at how do we communicate with extraterrestrial intelligent life form, because trees don't fucking want to build spaceships to go off the planet and things, then, are we the only species on this planet
that's conscious?
Well, I don't even know.
Chimps? I mean, I think this is the thing. You
have to define consciousness.
You say, do you believe in God? And you suddenly realize that that's a big question.
Yeah. Same as consciousness.
What is consciousness? It's a big question. Is it communication? Is it thought? Is it problem solving?
Is it feeling, emotion?
Right? I mean, chimps definitely solve problems, but so do crows.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is an amorphous blob here called consciousness. And again, I am not an expert. You really should talk to somebody who is an expert in the brain. But I don't think it's a single, well-defined concept. So I'm sure there are aspects of consciousness in all kinds of animals, of what we call consciousness.
Yeah, that's right. So then, okay, based on all of the other ones, would you say that we are the most advanced of all these conscious beings? And if so, why?
Define advanced. I mean,
I mean, you got to give me something, Geraint.
No. I know. Look, I would say that I can definitely say that we have quite human-like consciousness. I mean, then that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, to know, we'd have to know what a dolphin is thinking, or what a chimp is thinking, or even a dog is thinking.
It's an impossible question, really.
Yeah.
Because our values might be our values, and their values might be totally different. The fact that we can have intellectual discourse like this, the fact that we have emotions, art, whatever. So if you go and tell that to a lion, if you teach a lion how to speak English and you say, hey, we do this, we do that, they're not even going to understand that. Because their field of reference is so far removed from ours, they might value different. They're just different. You know what I mean? So you have to be very careful to anthropomorphize everything into we are humans, everybody's evolving, we're the most evolved, we're as evolved as anybody else.
Yeah.
We just think through our own mind, so we make everything relate to us.
And
you know what I mean?
that's why we are the most destructive species.
Well,
because we're so ignorant in that sense.
So can I put a slight flip on this as well? So you know the mantis shrimp?
No.
There's a little shrimp, lives in the ocean, very brightly coloured, and it has a huge number of colour receptors compared to ours. Right? We've got 3, and I think it's got something like 7. So so the range of colours and that a mantis shrimp can see, it could not explain to us, if it could talk, what that means. It just knows that our vision at some level is completely inferior. We don't see the world as the mantis shrimp sees the world. I think it's similar with brains. We were talking about how animals are thinking and how they're deciding to do things. They're just different. And we're sitting here and we have our human consciousness. And I think it's wrong for us to think that ours is somehow a pinnacle. And other animals should be trying to be like us because we don't know what goes on in their brains.
And that's what I mean. So we're the most destructive because we're eating them and we're like taking forests away at the rate of like 1 football field a second and things. And
but I think that's just because, and this goes back to, again, the agricultural revolution and the fact that our species has gotten out of control and we're not part of the ecosystem. Because Christopher Ryan uses a good analogy. His next book is called Evolved to Death, and he uses the analogy of grasshopper becomes a locust, right?
Yeah, grasshoppers are locusts.
So grasshoppers up to a certain point. So I think it's like, let's say, for example, use the number 150,000. 150,000 grasshoppers are, let's say, for lack of a better phrase, peace-loving species. They go about their ecosystem. They're not destructive, whatever. And then as soon as they get to a certain point, 150,000 in a certain 1 kilometre, I think that's something like that, right? Once they get to that point, they turn into a different species. They turn into a species that's there's too many of them, and they turn into locusts, and it's a plague. They
rip it,
tear everything apart in as far as the eye can see. And that, I think, is going back to the agricultural revolution. Is it right or wrong, or did it fuck us kind of thing? That's one of the big questions, because now it's like a snowball. We're out of control. We can't, bring back. And that just might be. It might not be because we're conscious, because we were conscious before the agricultural revolution, and we weren't destructive like the way we were. I mean, overhunting and stuff. The jury's out on whether that was our doing, killing off a lot of species, and it's probably, yes, it was, but we weren't doing what we're doing to the planet now.
Yeah.
And that's because you could argue that's because one little fork in the road where agriculture came out. Agriculture was...
Of the closet.
Yeah, agriculture started, and then since then it's been, population, huge spike, everything's gone out of control. And that's only because of that. So because we're conscious, I don't think it has anything to do with that. Mm-hmm. However, we are conscious, we are, what you said, the most destructive. But I think that's just a bad set of scenarios, an unlucky set of scenarios that led us to where we are now, where we are destroying the planet to a degree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have to get...
You're about to say you're conscious of the time.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Well, I'm humanly conscious of the time. I wonder if my cat knows what the time it is.
He doesn't have a cat.
Do we just do a quick 6 from 6?
Yeah, just quickly, plug your book, tell us what's about...
Don't we normally do this after 6 from 6?
Yes, we do. Don't do that. Bill.
Okay, so, and we're going to have to do them pretty quick fire here, Geraint, but let's go with it. So, favourite travel destination, place you've been, top of the bucket list? No, top of your recommendations to anyone. Favourite place on the planet?
I like so many places. Look, I love London, but I'm going to say the Pacific Northwest. I lived there for a couple of years, and I love the wilderness, and I love Seattle.
Beautiful.
Oh, very nice.
Nice one. Next question, dream destination, somewhere that you haven't been, top of the bucket list?
Cambodia and Vietnam. I haven't done Southeast Asia.
We're doing Vietnam with Adventure Fit in September, I believe. You want me to slide you in a spot there, mate?
I'm teaching.
You can teach us. So, my final question, any book you like to recommend to anyone, can be a novel, can be
Astrophysics.
Yeah, can be
self-written.
No, I won't recommend give my own book for recommendations. Again, there is just so many. But if anyone's got an interest in physics, they should read the Feynman Lectures in Physics. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, it's a bit of a textbook, but Feynman had definitely had a particular way of seeing the way the world worked. It's very good.
Beautiful. Tommy, you're up.
Spare time. What do you do?
I don't have any spare time.
What do you like to do when you're not working? Apart from spend time with the family.
I actually like to walk and run while listening to podcasts.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Very
Adventure
good.
Radio,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Adventure Radio is a ripper.
It's up there. Yeah.
Definitely the best podcast in the world.
Never heard of it.
The Verge shit radio. Big inspiration.
Big inspiration?
Yes, someone you look up to. I'm going to guess in my head who it is.
Inspirations are tough ones. Inspirations for why I'm doing what I'm doing?
Well, yeah, it can be, but someone you just admire, someone you look up to, someone you used to look up to.
Well, look,
Trying to get him to say Carl Sagan, aren't you?
No.
Let's be honest.
I'm not.
Someone who might have been around, very famous in the 90s, you may or may not have looked up to him.
So one of the first scientists I knew about was Einstein because we share a birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 14th of March. He was born 90 years before I was.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I share a birthday with Vulcan the Gladiator. So shout out to Vulcan. Happy birthday for today. Yeah. It's my birthday today, by the way, Grant.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to me. Yeah, thanks, mate.
I share a birthday with Lady Gaga. That's good. Yeah, same thing. Albert Einstein. Okay, and then 3 people, dead or alive, to dinner. You were having a dinner, right? Who would they be and why?
Okay, 3 people. Douglas Adams, because I loved his creativity and I was always a big fan of his.
For the people that don't know, Douglas Adams is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy author.
And Last Chance to See.
Last Chance to See.
Yeah, and Dirk Gently, who's on Netflix.
Do it gently. Do it gently.
No,
good name.
Sure wasn't on Red Tube.
Dirk Gently's a bit... Jesus. What are you looking at, mate? Pornhub.com, /Geraint
it's a very hard one to answer.
It is tough.
Yeah. Look, Einstein and Feynman, why not? I mean, look, there's so many people, and there's many scientists that you could talk so many things about. So, but
doesn't have to be a scientist.
I know, but there are other people, like names you hear in other fields, historians and economists, etc. but I think possibly the list is too long.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It'll be a big dinner.
Yeah.
Hey, Geraint, tell us about your book in this short time we have.
Okay, so book is called A Fortunate Universe, Life in a Finely Tuned Cosmos, by myself and Luke Barnes. It's a book on the science behind the fact that the laws of physics that govern our universe appear to be very fine-tuned. If the universe was born in a slightly different fashion, we wouldn't have the conditions for complexity and life in the universe. So
that's awesome. Is it something to the similar analogy of the analogy of the puddle of water in the crack in the ground?
It's which comes from Douglas Adams.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so it is along those lines. That's the anthropic reasoning that you have to find yourself in a universe that can support you. The question is why is there a crack in the ground in the first place, right?
Oh, yeah.
Without the crack, you wouldn't have the puddle.
True.
Right? So it's that kind of question of why we have the universe that we do. The one where we could be sitting in this, sitting here asking these kind of questions.
I love it.
Cool. Well, round 2, that was fascinating.
It was so good. We'll get you for round 3 as well.
Thanks so much, Geraint.
We'll be more
pleasure.
conscious by that stage.
All right, cool. And that's a wrap.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.